A new defense posture for the 21st century. Prior to the onset of World War II in 1940, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, our president, sent a defense appropriation to Congress for 50,000 airplanes, military planes, a year. The former Assistant Secretary of the Navy didn't ask for ships. He knew the coming conflict would be decided by air power. He proved that war was too important to be left to the generals. Generals are forever fighting the last war. Today, the United States is trying to build a new generation fighter for approximately $1.5 trillion and a bomber for even more money. Someone should tell the Pentagon that they just spent $4.5 trillion on 2 wars, and we are $20+ trillion in debt. The latest aircraft carrier is fully operational to the tune of $13 billion, 5 years late and $6 billion over budget. A new generation of ballistic missile submarines are planned, costing supposedly around $347 billion for 12 submarines. The real cost? Who knows how much? Certainly closer to $1 trillion. Now, the question is, can we afford it? And the answer is no, we cannot. It is time to make our plans conform to our resources. When things get all too confusing, go back to the beginning and start over. What is the mission of our military in regard to ballistic missiles? A credible deterrent to stop a nuclear attack from ever happening, because any attacker would be certain of retaliation and mutually assured destruction. Mad. The focus of this conflict is missiles, not aircraft carriers, submarines, or planes. Just as FDR prepared for a conflict to be decided by airplanes, we should focus on missiles. The crucial leg of the triad is the submarine component. But what if these 12 ships are no longer hidden? What if the oceans are transparent now or soon? We are overthinking the problem. Russia and China both rely on mobile missiles, and we should too. Our current land-based forces are stationary in silos. What if we change the rules? Everyone remembers the shell game, where 3 cups are shuffled and 1 hides the ball. Guess correctly and double your money. It is a game going back to ancient Egypt. If the seas are soon to be transparent, why not hide our deterrent in plain sight? The most common, ubiquitous sight on the roads, trains, and ships are the 20 million shipping containers on the earth today. Envision a shell game with 20 million shipping containers moving around the oceans, on trains, on trucks, sitting in warehouses, factory yards, backyards. If you are looking for 12 submarines that are 500 feet long and weigh 20,000 tons, by using the correct satellite technology, you will find them. But if you are looking for 400 shipping containers with special cargo hiding in plain sight among 20 million other shipping containers, you can never hope to find them. The Romans. We are the new Rome. The Romans collapsed. Why? Because they went bankrupt spending money on military defense, the military defense of their empire. They spent 90% of their funds, their budget, on military. We currently spend about 65% of ours on military and intelligence. Now, the most prevalent threat to our survival is economic mismanagement and fiscal collapse that leads to military collapse. Spending trillions of dollars on exotic weapons will sabotage our ability to continue to enforce the peace of the world. And should this occur, then the rules-based order established by the Allies after World War II will fail. It will be every man for himself. The law of the jungle. This cascade of events will end in a war similar to World War I, fought against many nations using nuclear weapons. The task at hand is to generate a credible strategic nuclear threat without spending vast sums of money. Our military currently stakes everything on a few large, very expensive platforms. This strategy is incorrect. It is time to use smaller, cheaper, more numerous weapon systems. The new idea is to hide in plain sight. Several thousand missiles in shipping containers, hiding within the larger population of millions of such containers. How might this epic shell game take place within American territory, on land and water? How might this actually work? Remember, the goal of strategic nuclear forces is to survive a potential first strike sneak attack, and in the minds of the enemy, present an assurance that if they should attack us, that they too would be destroyed. Now, let us acknowledge that this strategy of mutually assured destruction, MAD, is just that. It is mad. But until the world changes, the only way we avoid war is to be prepared and present a credible threat so that the enemy knows that if they attack, they will lose. This fact and this fact alone ensures that we will not have to engage in open war. To allow our military to decay is to invite war and to lose the survivability of our strategic nuclear forces is to invite a nuclear Pearl Harbor. There are 20 million shipping containers in the world, and within the millions of circulating containers, there would be 2,000 that would hold missiles. Most of these would launch GPS navigation satellites, small communication satellites, and small spy satellites for low Earth orbit. In a shell game, within a shell game, 400 of these containers would be single warhead nuclear devices out of the 2,000. Others will be conventional explosives, high explosives. Another 2,000 containers might be largely stationary within the same mix. A 3-person team would be tasked with guarding each of the 400 nuclear devices on the move. In an emergency, they could receive support from emergency response forces within 15 or 30 minutes. The devices themselves have layers of technical safeguards that ensure they cannot be successfully stolen or detonated. These missiles can be set up and launched in 15 minutes on any firm level surface such as a field or a road. The normal configuration is a 2-stage solid fuel device, missile, with a 3rd and 4th stage that can be manually added as needed for more distant target locations. The basic model design is a Patriot or Minuteman missile that is about 2/3 the standard size, with a single miniaturized nuclear device or multiple very light satellites for GPS navigation, communications, and spy satellites. The measure of victory in war is to penetrate the enemy communications and to secure your own communications. The Chinese strategy is not to match us ship for ship, aircraft for aircraft carrier, The Chinese strategy is to knock out our satellites and deprive our forces of communications, navigation, and observation. This strategy will work very well in a conflict, which makes such a conflict more likely. About 80% of these missiles in the shipping containers in this giant shell game will be two-stage rockets with multiple small satellites used to reestablish communications, navigation, and observation when our larger military satellites have been destroyed by anti-satellite weapons. Without GPS location, our weapons will not find their mark. And without communications and observation, our forces will be struggling in the dark. The strategy of hiding in plain sight using large numbers of small, cheap missiles will work. The unit cost, and in the end everything is about resources, the unit cost will be about $10 million each. Total cost $40 billion for all the missiles, and about half again as much for the satellites, payloads, the nuclear warheads, etc., if existing nuclear materials are repurposed. A credible deterrent can be maintained for decades for less than $100 billion over the life of this program. This is a fraction of the cost of the current plan and represents a more survivable force, greater security from theft or accident because it is based in American territory, and it frees up defense dollars for next generation autonomous systems and personnel training. Weakness invites attack, and economic excess leads to collapse. The middle path ensures peace and prosperity, and it provides for the common defense and promotes the general welfare. General Curtis Lee May was not known as a great humanitarian. However, after World War II, he created Strategic Air Command, SAC, the most professional, the most lethal force imaginable. Joseph Stalin was a very dangerous man, and he may have contemplated war, but knowing how any war he started would have ended meant that such a war never took place. Our current force and strategy have entered a window of vulnerability that needs to be discussed, analyzed, and corrected. This strategy, a shell game within a shell game, is a viable alternative that is cheaper, safer, and more effective. Thank you. Please let me know your thoughts in this matter. Thank you, and God bless.